Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into Chapter 4
Ooh, Chapter 4.
of Soul in the Driver's Seat.
A fascinating chapter.
I think so too, and kind of the idea that is your soul or your ego kind of running the show?
It's a question all of us face every day.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too, and I'm so glad that we have you here to help us kind of unpack some of this.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so to start with, I mean, what does it look like to kind of live from your soul versus your ego?
Well, the author uses this really interesting analogy of two different operating systems.
Okay,
You have your default operating system, we'll call it the ego,
right.
and that's really fear-based, very focused on survival.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole other operating system that is the soul, and it operates from a place of love and abundance.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's like kind of picking which mode you want to operate from. And sometimes I feel like I'm in that good positive energy mode, and sometimes it's just like doom and gloom.
Absolutely. And, the chapter highlights 10 different dilemmas that really showcase this conflict.
Oh, okay.
For example, if we're talking about looking for a new job,
Yeah.
someone who's operating from their ego might only be focused on money and prestige,
Right.
regardless of, if it fits their passion or not.
Right. It's just like, get me in that corner office.
Exactly. It's all about external validation.
Right.
But someone operating from their soul is going to approach that job search as an opportunity to really contribute
Interesting.
their unique talents and their gifts.
Yeah, so it's not so much about like what you're going to get from the job. It's about what you can give.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
And that applies to so many areas of life, especially relationships.
Ooh, okay. How so?
The chapter argues that the best relationships are based on wholeness only.
Okay, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
It means that you are already whole and complete as an individual.
Okay.
You're not coming into the relationship needing someone to fix you or complete you.
So it's not like those rom-coms where, two halves make a whole.
Right. It's more like two whole beings coming together to enhance each other's lives.
That's a nice visual.
It is. And what's really fascinating is that the book even says that when one person is soul dominant,
Okay.
they can positively influence the other person, even if that other person is more ego-driven.
Oh, so it's not a lost cause if your partner isn't like, totally on the same page spiritually.
Not at all. It's all about raising the vibration of the relationship as a whole.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about jobs, we talked about relationships.
Yeah.
What about health and wellness?
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
So the book actually proposes that illness is a state of being ill at ease, driven by fear-based thoughts.
So you're saying that our thoughts can actually make us sick?
That's the idea. And of course, we need to acknowledge all the advancements in medicine.
Right.
But the point is, those advancements often address just the symptoms,
Okay.
not the root cause.
Let's see. So it's like if you have a cut and you just put a bandage on it, but you never actually clean it.
Exactly. It's not going to truly heal.
It's a good analogy.
And the book contrasts this with the soul-based approach to health,
Okay.
which is all about inner peace,
Oh, okay.
joy, and gratitude.
It sounds a lot more fun than being afraid of getting sick all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about illness, but then the book also goes on to talk about something that I find just mind-blowing,
Yeah.
which is this idea of time
Oh,
as an illusion.
time is the tricky one.
It is. I mean, what do you even mean by that time is an illusion?
Well, the book says that the past and the future actually only exist in our minds. The only thing that's real is the present moment.
So you mean like when I'm, thinking back on a vacation I took 5 years ago, I'm actually creating that experience in my mind.
Exactly. You're reliving those memories, but they're not actually happening now.
Wow. Okay, and I guess the same goes for the future, like when I'm worrying about a deadline or a presentation.
Exactly. You're projecting your thoughts and fears onto something that hasn't even happened yet.
So what does the book say about how we can kind of combat that?
It's all about being present.
Being present.
Living in the now.
Okay, but that's easier said than done, right?
It takes practice, for
Right.
sure. But the more we can anchor ourselves in the present moment,
Yeah.
the less we're controlled by those fear-based thoughts that feed on those illusions of time.
It's like taking a deep breath and just being here now.
Exactly.
Okay, well, this has already been so interesting, but, there's one more topic that I think we should definitely touch on.
Ooh, what's that?
Sex.
All right, let's dive into that.
Okay, so the book has a pretty unique perspective on this, saying that its primary purpose isn't just reproduction,
Right.
but it's actually a subconscious attempt to regain a sense of unity.
A sense of wholeness.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I've never thought about it that way.
It's a different lens, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're not just talking about like physical pleasure or even emotional intimacy. We're talking about something much deeper.
Exactly. A yearning for connection on a soul level.
That makes sense. And, the book goes on to talk about how all the judgment and guilt that we have around
Oh,
sex
yeah.
stems from fear-based thinking.
Absolutely. We've turned something natural and beautiful into something taboo and shameful.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of the problems come in.
Definitely. The book suggests that if we could just strip away that fear and approach sexuality with more love and understanding,
Yeah.
it could be a much healthier and more fulfilling experience for everyone.
Hmm. That's something to think about.
It is.
Okay, so we talked about the good side of it, so to speak.
Yeah.
What about those darker aspects of sexuality,
Hmm.
when it's used for control and manipulation?
You're right. The chapter doesn't shy away from those tougher aspects. It points out that the ego can twist that natural desire for intimacy into a tool for power.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be mindful of.
Absolutely. We need to check our motives and make sure we're coming from a place of genuine love and respect.
Okay, well, speaking of tough topics, there's one more that I think we have to address.
Oh, which one?
Death.
The big one.
It is, and, the book suggests that the fear of death actually stems from our identification with our physical bodies.
And our limited view of time.
Right, because we think this is all there is.
Exactly.
But the book offers an alternative perspective, right?
It does. It says that death is just a transition, not an end.
Okay, so what does that look like? What happens after we die?
Well, the book describes the soul reuniting with loved ones and continuing its journey.
So it's not the end, it's just a new beginning.
That's the idea, and it's incredibly comforting for many people.
Yeah, it definitely takes away some of the fear.
For sure.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, but there's one more area I want to touch on before we wrap up this part of our dive.
Money.
Yes, the root of all evil.
Well, maybe not evil, but it definitely seems to cause a lot of anxiety.
It does. And the book connects that anxiety to the ego's need for security and control.
It's that constant fear of not having enough, right?
Exactly.
But the book contrasts this with the soul's qualities of generosity and abundance.
Right. Instead of hoarding and fearing loss, we can focus on sharing and trusting that we'll always be provided for.
It's a big shift in mindset, though.
It is, but even small steps towards that abundance mindset can make a big difference.
Okay, so practically speaking, how can we start to shift our relationship with money?
One suggestion from the book is to practice gratitude.
Gratitude for what we already have.
Exactly. Appreciate the abundance that's already in your life.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another suggestion is to focus on giving.
Giving.
Yes. When you give from a place of generosity, you create a positive flow of energy that benefits everyone.
So it's not about giving to get something in return. It's about giving from the heart.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. And finally, the book encourages us to examine our spending habit.
The spending habits.
Are we using money to fuel our ego's desires for status and pleasure?
Oh,
Or are we investing in things that align with our soul's purpose?
that's a good question.
It's about being mindful and making conscious choices.
Yeah, aligning our actions with our values.
Precisely.
Okay, well, this conversation has been incredibly enlightening so far.
I'm glad to hear that.
We've explored so many different aspects of this chapter, and it's clear that there's a lot more to unpack.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to take a moment to just appreciate the depth and the wisdom of this chapter.
It's really quite remarkable.
It is. It's like it's giving us a whole new way of looking at the world and at ourselves.
It's offering a path to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Yeah, I think so too. And one of the things that really struck me was this idea of, we have relationships with everything, not just people.
Right. It's a profound realization to come to that we're constantly interacting with ideas and objects, even brands, in a way that forms these deep attachments.
And those attachments can be just as strong and influential as the relationships that we have with people.
Absolutely. And it challenges us to really examine those attachments
Right.
to determine whether they're serving us or whether they're keeping us stuck in these ego-driven patterns.
Yeah, it's like taking inventory.
Yeah.
But instead of looking at all the people in your life, you're looking at all the things and the ideas and the beliefs that you've surrounded yourself with.
Exactly. And asking yourself, are these aligned with my soul's purpose or are they just clutter?
And that brings us back to that thought experiment that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Stripping away all of those external things that we think define us.
Yeah.
What would be left?
What would remain?
It's kind of scary, actually.
It can be a bit daunting. It makes us confront those illusions of the ego
Right.
and recognize that true essence of who we are.
That's soul essence.
Yes, that soul essence, which the book suggests, connects us all to the divine source of creation.
So it's not about what we have or what we do. It's about who we are at our core.
It's about recognizing that inherent worthiness that exists within each of us.
That's a powerful reminder, especially in a world that's constantly telling us we need more, more, more.
We're bombarded with messages that try to define us by external factors.
Exactly.
But this chapter reminds us that true fulfillment comes from within, from aligning with our soul's purpose.
And that brings us back to the chapter's central theme, the power of thought.
Yes. Our thoughts create our reality.
Yeah.
And choosing love-based thoughts over fear-based ones can unlock incredible potential within us.
It's a beautiful idea, but putting it into practice can be a real challenge.
Absolutely. Our minds can be like those wild monkeys jumping from one thought to another.
So how do we tame those monkeys?
Well, it starts with awareness,
Okay.
becoming mindful of what's happening in our minds without judgment.
So just noticing those thoughts as they arise.
Exactly. What kind of thoughts are dominating your mental landscape?
Are they positive or negative?
All right,
Fear-based or love-based?
precisely. And once you become aware of those fear-based thoughts, you can start to challenge them.
Okay.
Ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is it serving me? Does it align with my soul's purpose?
So it's like gently questioning those thoughts rather than just blindly accepting them.
And then consciously choose thoughts that are aligned with love, peace, and joy.
But what about those really heavy, dark thoughts? The ones that feel almost impossible to shift?
Those can be tough. Remember, you are not your thoughts.
Okay.
You are the awareness that is observing those thoughts.
Okay. So it's like creating a little bit of space between myself and those thoughts.
Exactly. Witness them without getting lost in them.
Like watching clouds drift by.
And if those thoughts stem from real pain or trauma, seeking professional help can be incredibly valuable.
Therapy or support groups.
Exactly. They can provide the tools and guidance to navigate those difficult emotions.
Because even in the darkest of times, there's always a glimmer of hope.
Right, always. That soul's light can never be extinguished.
That's reassuring. Now, throughout this whole discussion, there's one topic that I keep coming back to.
Oh,
Criminality and evil.
yeah.
It's a heavy topic, but it's something that I've been wrestling with.
It's a question that has haunted humanity for centuries.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure out how to reconcile those acts of darkness with this idea of a loving, soul-driven world.
It's not easy, but the book offers some insights.
Okay, so how does it explain those acts of violence and cruelty that seem so far removed from love and compassion?
It all comes back to fear. When fear takes over and the ego is in control, it can lead to incredibly destructive behavior.
So it's not that some people are inherently evil, but rather that their actions are driven by fear and a distorted sense of self.
Precisely. Think back to those 10 dilemmas, the conflicts between the ego and the soul. Now imagine those taken to the extreme. Greed becomes theft. The need to be special becomes a lust for power. The fear of vulnerability becomes aggression and violence.
It's like those negative impulses, those shadow sides of ourselves, are magnified when the ego is running the show.
Exactly. And the book suggests that punishment alone is not enough to address the root cause of these issues.
So it's not just about locking people up and throwing away the key. There needs to be a deeper approach.
It's about understanding the pain and the fear that drive those actions.
And addressing those underlying causes.
Yes. It's a shift towards love, understanding, and healing.
It's like saying that we need to treat the disease, not just the symptoms.
Exactly. It's a challenging but necessary shift in perspective.
Yeah, it requires us to recognize that we're all interconnected and that healing individual wounds can contribute to healing the collective.
It's a beautiful vision of a more compassionate and just world.
And it brings us right back to that central message of this chapter, the power of choice.
Yes, we can choose to let our ego drive us towards fear, separation, and scarcity.
Or we can choose to align with our soul and move towards love, connection, and abundance.
And that choice is reflected in every thought, every action, every decision we make.
It's like each moment is an opportunity to create the kind of world we want to live in.
And that's a powerful reminder.
It is. This conversation has been so insightful.
I'm glad you're finding it helpful.
I feel like I'm starting to see the world and my place in it in a whole new light.
That's the power of this work.
It is. It's like the book is giving us a set of soul power X-ray glasses.
Revealing the interconnectedness of all things.
And the transformative power of love.
I love that analogy.
Well, I'm so grateful for your insights. We've been through a lot together exploring Chapter 4.
It's been quite the journey, hasn't it?
It has from relationships and money to time and even death. It seems like we've covered so much ground.
No stone left unturned.
And yet it feels like it all comes back to this one idea, this one golden thread.
The transformative power of thought.
Exactly, and I know we talked about it a bit already,
Yeah,
but I think it's worth revisiting, especially in light of everything else we've discussed.
absolutely. It's the foundation for everything.
So let's dive back in. What does it actually mean to say that our thoughts create our reality?
Well, the book suggests that our thoughts are incredibly powerful.
Right.
They're not just fleeting things that come and go.
Right.
They have a real impact on our experiences, our emotions, our behaviors, even our physical health.
So if I'm constantly thinking negative thoughts,
Yeah.
I'm more likely to experience negative emotions and attract negative situations into my life.
Exactly. You're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow. Okay, so then how do we break out of that cycle?
It starts with becoming aware of our thoughts.
That mindfulness piece we were talking about.
Exactly. Paying attention to that inner dialogue without judgment.
Okay.
And then we can start to challenge those negative thoughts.
So questioning whether they're actually true.
Right. And if they're not serving us, we can choose to replace them with thoughts that are more positive and aligned with our soul's purpose.
So instead of, I'm not good enough,
Yeah,
I might think I am worthy and capable.
exactly. And that shift in thinking can have a ripple effect on every aspect of your life.
So it's not just about positive thinking. It's about aligning our thoughts with our soul's truth.
That's the key. And the more we practice this, the easier it becomes.
It's like building a hustle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the stronger that muscle gets, the more we're able to live from a place of love and abundance.
And that's really what this whole chapter is about, isn't it?
It is. It's a guide to shifting from an ego-driven life to a soul-driven life.
From fear to love.
From scarcity to abundance.
From separation to connection.
And that shift starts with our thoughts.
Wow, I feel like we've come full circle.
We have, and I hope that this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and tools to apply to your own life.
I know it has for me.
Remember, you have the power to choose love over fear, to create a life that is aligned with your soul's purpose.
It's an ongoing journey, but it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Soul on the Driver's Seat. I'm so grateful for your insights and for sharing this journey with me.
It's been my pleasure, and remember, keep those thoughts aligned with your soul's purpose.
Until next time.